Alright, it's hot as hell out today, and I just, got a soda right there. So, today I'm going to be talking about this whole thing I've been noticing on YouTube where people essentially have no fucking idea how to form their own opinions or how to be themselves. Because every time I go on YouTube, it seems like the same old shit over and over again. It kind of feels like, an episode of feels like Groundhog Day, where you're reliving every single fucking day. That's how it is with these videos. Because there will be something that happens, like some sort of drama, some sort of event, some sort of discussion, and most of the time it just revolves around the same opinions. Like, it just revolves around people who just say the most vapid, shallow shit that most likely they heard from someone else first, but they're not gonna admit that because if they did, no one would watch them. And it's very mind-numbing because every single time, like, I see one of these videos, I'm like, oh, it might be a nuance, it might be it might be an interesting perspective. But no, it's just fucking slop. It's just someone being like, oh, this thing's good, or oh, this thing's bad. And they give the same cookie cutter reasons. And half the time these motherfuckers will just make shit up just to be interesting. Let me just tell you all something. If you are doing something, if you're making up stuff just to get views, you are a scumbag. Okay? And I know there's gonna be a lot of people who are like, oh, but they're not a scumbag, they need to make a living. Maybe make a living off of something that isn't lies. Because if you're lying to get attention, you're making false allegations to get attention, views, money, you're no better than a fucking New York Post writer. Do you want to be on the same level as a New York Post writer? No. No, the fuck you don't. And if you do, you have some very terrible life goals. And I say this as someone who's trying to get an art degree. Okay, no, look, we're not doing self-deprecation here today, okay? Okay, I'm trying to say why this, I'm just gonna be honest. I don't like how YouTube is nowadays. Because when I was growing up, when I was young, I saw people doing all these interesting skits, giving their takes that were interesting and different, and they didn't give a fuck what anyone else thought. But nowadays, people are so fucking scared of being vulnerable, so scared of being different, scared of being open, and I think a lot of it has to do with the climate we're in, not only socially, but also politically. It makes a lot of sense, because I was born in George Bush Jr.'s later term. And I noticed that when I was very, very young, people just kind of, live by these very, narrow rules and expectations, and things weren't as, experimental. But then when, 2007, 2008, 2009 came around, there were people who were, literally putting, teasing their hair up to fucking here, and putting in, a shit ton of extensions. There is a big, I'm just gonna say it right now, whether we're aware of it or not, there is a big change that happens depending on the political and social climate. Now, let me just say this right now. I'm not a fan of liberals. I'm not endorsing Democrats. But what I do notice is that when more progressive or when more, non-conservative ideas are popular, there tends to be more openness, more excitement, more difference. I literally have been noticing how there are people who are like, I don't want tattoos, I'm scared of how it would look in my wedding dress. Shut the fuck up and rock those tattoos with your wedding dress. And if you can't, you are a motherfucking pussy. And it proves you only got tattoos just because it's a trend. And that's another thing. All these fucking trends. And it goes on with TikTok mainly, where people are taught more to be consumers than creators. So they're just basing their identities off these vapid trends. And they're literally just, creating their whole identity off a trend. And I know that, you know, it's really hard to communicate this, because a lot of the times I notice that people are just too scared to say it. We live in a consumer society. Everything's a subscription. Everything has a fucking paywall. Everything is like, oh, just buy these clothes from Shein. You know, there's no DIY, there's no underground, there's no just... It's all like these concepts are going away. It's not to say like the underground or like new interesting things are like gone, because I still do find very interesting, experimental, cool stuff. But I noticed that it's like not as popular, and that isn't inherently a bad thing. It means that the people who are truly, you know, into that stuff are gonna stay with that stuff. And it shows that the people who, you know, really care about it are still there, and they still enjoy it. But what it does show is that there's also this kind of, like, social stigma against presenting differently. Like, you know, I got a septum piercing, and I used to have my nostrils pierced, which I had to take out after being sent to the ER. And I also used to have an eyebrow piercing, but, you know, I was sent to the psych ward, and they had these plugs, but I couldn't get it in there, and so eventually I was just like, fuck it. So, now I'm just stretching my ears. These are 6 gauges, you know? But I noticed that a lot of the people who, like, 5 years ago would be sporting, like, blush and e-boy or e-girl styles or anything like that are getting styles that are more in, like, trends. That are, like, you know, the clean girl thing, the mob boss thing, these styles that represent, like, extreme wealth and privilege and all that sort of stuff. Because these people don't know how to construct an identity, and so they look at these vapid, you know, materialistic sort of indicators of, you know, conformity or, well, you know, wealth, and they think, wow, this is me. But the moment something different takes off, they're gonna just hop to that. Because people don't care about themselves. They don't care about any sort of identity. They don't care about any sort of individuality or nuance or anything like that. They just care about the most vapid, basic shit. And because of that, we live in this climate of the internet where it's all so fucking bland. It's, you know, all these copycats, all these wannabes who don't actually think, who just consume, and they're so afraid to do anything different that they just do nothing with their lives. They just sit in, like, this endless, like, you know, endless scrolling all day, and, you know, it can get very addictive, because, you know, people are so used to being, like, overstimulated and getting all this dopamine that they can't actually do anything for themselves. Like, nowadays, I'm seeing, like, people who are literally like, how could you survive 5 years ago without ChatGPT? Excuse me? Fucking excuse me. You know, when I was in high school, I did a project for my friend. My friend. Not even for me, but my friend. You know? Like, I helped her graduate. Okay? And that was completely without AI. So, I don't fucking know how, like, people nowadays, they can't even do shit for themselves. And they don't want to do shit for themselves, because they just want these carbon copy ideas. They don't want any new things. They just want this endless, you know, this consumer, like, society where everything's based on consumption but not creation. And I feel like because of that, there's so much stagnation, and nothing's gonna get anywhere, because everyone's taught to look at everything as a job. You know, the hustle culture, the grind set, you know, and because of that, no one can actually make a genuine idea, because then they're scared that they won't get rich, they're scared they won't get popular, they're scared that they won't be liked. And I'm someone who's never been really liked or accepted. No matter how much people pleasing and ass kissing I did, it never got me anywhere because I've always been kind of an outsider. I literally remember as a kid, I'd stand like at that like need to play like the buddy bench thing. I'd sit there for like sometimes for all my recess because I was not popular at all. And when I did hang out with like a group of semi-popular kids, like in high school, they ditched me. They ditched me when we graduated. I had to graduate at my house because I was afraid one of them would like attack me or something. And with that, everyone's just, there's no difference anymore. There's no fun. There's no experimentation. There's no nothing like that. It's all just slop. It's all the same. And I hate that, you know? I wish there was more, you know, fun. I wish there's more difference. I wish people wouldn't be afraid to actually speak their piece and go on with their days.